Hi everyone, sorry about the lighting, it's not great, but I've got some very exciting news to share and I wanted to get this video out, so here it is. There now exists a Hoya 5x5 last cross edge trainer, which is really cool, and it's something that I think can definitely help you practice your cross edges because, you know, doing timed and untimed solves certainly helps a lot. But especially if you're trying to learn the cases from my last cross edge doc, which is what the trainer is based on, then it can be hard just by doing solves for, you know, waiting for the same case to come up multiple times so that you can practice it, because there are a lot of different cases and a lot of different situations you could run into. But with the trainer, obviously, as with any other trainer for an alg set, you can choose certain sets of cases to train if you're learning them, or ones that you have learnt but you're working on finger tricks for and all of that kind of stuff. So I think there are a lot of good uses to get out of this. A link will be in the description to the trainer. It's on Malte Ihlefeld's website, and almost all of the credit for this really has to go to him, because although I came up with the idea, I thought this would be a really useful feature to have, but I possess absolutely no technical skills to make a trainer or anything like this. I wouldn't know where to start, but Malte has a website which has got a variety of other trainers for, again, not just 3x3 and like the usual alg sets, but for a load of different puzzles and a load of different alg sets. So I reached out to him and he was very kind and happy to help. And he already has 5x5 last two edge cases on his trainer. So implementing this wasn't too big of a step, I hope. But yeah, he was very, very kind. I sent over the list of algs from my last cross edge doc, and he was able to create all of the setups and that. The images was a bit of a sticking point because obviously in my last cross edge doc I have 3D images, because in a lot of the time you need to be able to see pieces that are in front slots and back slots at the same time, or even DF, or anywhere in the U layer. And Malte wanted to make sure that the images that he generated and used on the trainer were in the same sort of style and format as all of the others on his site, which were 2D but with a view from above. So that was a bit tricky to do, but he's managed to do it very well. I think it comes out well, and I think it's definitely still very clear which case is which, so that's good. And also just generating the setups, again, I'm not really sure what goes into it. I did look into doing this by hand and it just would have taken so long. He's managed to do it. I've tested all of the cases out individually, they all work, so that's really good. And yeah, to be able to do this for an alg set that's literally never had anything like this before, I think is really, really good. So again, many, many credits to Malte for doing all of the work here. So yeah, that's enough for me from now. Let's take a look at what this trainer actually looks like. Okay, so this is what the trainer website looks like as a whole, and as you can see, we've got a lot of different puzzles and lots of different algorithm sets to go for here. And so under 5x5, if we go to LCE, last cross edge, then this is what the trainer will look like at the start. So as you can see, we've got all 398 cases separated into the subsets as they are on the cross edge document. And yeah, so you can do, basically the same thing as you can on a lot of different trainers. You can select all cases if you want, or you can select just by subsets if you want, or you can even just select individual cases or a combination of both. Basically, just you can use this to train whatever cases you want, whatever combination of cases you want, which is really useful. So if I just select, say, this subset, these are the cases where only the right wing is unsolved. So if I go to this, this is what it looks like. As you can see, we've got 10 cases selected. We have our scramble up here. This will be where the time is. And then on the side, we have our case list, which is currently empty. So if I just quickly show you on the cube here, I'll apply the scramble. And we have this case, and the solution I would do, I'll time it, I'll show you. Like that. And then, so we've got our time here. And then over on the right, as you can see, we've got this particular case, so we can click on this, and then you can see the image of the case, and you can see the setup and the list of solutions. So here now I've just gone through and entered a bunch of random times. So if I go over to the right, and if I click on one of these here, you'll be able to see the distribution of each of the times on this graph on the top. And then this graph on the bottom shows you a similar thing, but here instead of a frequency graph, it's a graph in terms of speed. So you can see this sort of light green coloured line is just the individual time, as you can see plotted on the graph, and then the sort of the more gold line is your sort of average for all of the cases as it goes. So I think this is really, really cool feature that all of the alg trainers on Malta's website have, is so you can see the distribution of your times, and you can see them plotted on a graph with your average as well, which means you'll be able to see how consistent each of your attempts at this algorithm are. So if you're really consistent, then the lines are going to be a lot flatter, and if you're a lot more inconsistent, then the lines will be a lot more up and down. And so that's a really easy visual way to show how your consistency on a case-by-case basis is. And then at the bottom here, we've got a list of times for each of them, and if you click on one of them, then you have the option to delete it. If at any point you get stuck on a case, you can click on this question mark up here above this time list, and that will show you an image of the case and the setup and the list of algorithms as well. A nice little function here with this pencil icon. If you click on this, you can edit the list of algorithms of solutions that you want to use. So if, for example, you just want to learn one solution for each case, and you don't want to clog up this part of the trainer, then you can delete all the others and just have the one that you want to learn, so there's no ambiguity there. These three buttons down the bottom, this arrow one, that also just deletes the time. If something goes wrong and you want to get rid of it, that's fine. This one, this cross, will unselect the current case that you're on. So if you start feeling just really confident, you feel like you've learnt it, you can unselect it without having to go back to the main menu. And then this one down here, this is the bookmark icon, and you can use that if you're having trouble with a particular case, you can highlight it and then come back to it at a later date and things like that. This icon up here, the trash can, that just will clear the whole session, so you can do that at any time. And then here in the settings, you've got a few different things that you can play around with, mainly just to your preferences. So another thing I like about this, that it does tend to be a given on most trainers, but is nonetheless the case here, is that the setup algorithms look pretty similar to each other at a first glance and are generally indistinguishable from the case that they're going to set up to. So like just by looking at this example, I can't tell what case I'm going to be setting up to, which is always a good thing, especially if you're training lots of cases at the same time. So yeah, a lot of what I've said is probably quite similar to a lot of other trainers that you've already used, but there are a couple of things that are slightly different from some other trainers and also from my last cross-edge document, so I'll quickly go over them now. Firstly is the case images, which you probably already noticed. They're not the same format as the last cross-edge doc. This is, again, just because Malta wanted consistency with the image generation that he's already used in other trainers. And also we needed a way to be able to see all four slots and the top of the cube at the same time. And you can also slightly see down here the DF slot, but because we're solving into that slot, we only need to be able to see the front color to know exactly what that piece is. And also I'd like to think, you should be able to know what kind of case you're setting up to anyway. Secondly, as you'll see in this bit here, the setup and the algorithms, the notation does follow a slightly different pattern to my last cross-edge doc. This is just to reflect the notation that alg.cubing.net uses. So the small r moves are in the place of r wide moves. So anywhere on my sheet that I've listed an r wide move or an r wide prime or anything like that, the r wide will be changed to a small r. Same thing goes with l wide moves and that sort of thing. If there's a 3r wide move, then that will be the number 3 and then the small r. And then if there's an inner slice move, like an r slice, on my document, that's written as a small r, but here it's written as a 2 and then a capital R. And the same thing if it's a small L slice, then it'll be written as a 2 and a capital L. And finally, the M slice, as you can see in this case, on my document, I've written it as a small m again, because it's just the middle layer, but here it's written as a capital M. So those are some important distinctions, but they should be pretty intuitive. The other thing is, compared to my LCE doc, the main way that the doc differentiates cases is just by descriptions of the positions of the pieces and the 3D images. So I've come up with something a bit more concise here. Obviously LCE stands for last cross edge. Then here the LW stands for left wing, the RW stands for right wing, and the capital M stands for the midge. And so these cases, left wing and right wing solved, left wing and midge solved, right wing and midge solved, should be fairly easy to understand. And then if we scroll down here, what we have is left wing solved, and then the capital M, that's for the midge, and then the small letters after it, either O or M. O stands for oriented and M stands for misoriented. So MO means midge oriented, MM means midge misoriented, and so on. And then these letters, the UF and the FR, those just designate these slots on the cube. So for example, if we take this case, we can see the right wing is solved down here. The midge is misoriented in the back right. And then we have the final position of the wing here, which I haven't described because it would be too long, but I've used a letter and a couple of numbers afterwards to denote each case. So those letters are T, L, M, and R. The T stands for two pieces solved, so that's just all of these first three subsets. And those range from, so case T1 to case T31 here. And then L stands for left wing solved, so we have L1 all the way down to here, which is L122. The M stands for midge solved, etc., etc. The R stands for right wing solved, etc., etc. So obviously they do go up to quite high numbers, but at the same time, I don't think that's really an important thing at all because, you know, there are other algorithm sets that have a lot of algorithms in, like ZBLL, for example, that has nearly 500 cases. This has 400. You know, when you're talking about a certain ZBLL case, you don't use the specific identifier to say it. So like you wouldn't say, oh, I just learnt case T49 or anti-soon 72 or anything like that. You would just describe the case and the patterns that you would recognize it by. So that's, I think, what you should still keep doing here. So I'm now going to do a quick demonstration of one of the subsets. I'm just going to pick one. I'm going to pick, let's go for this subset because I quite like it. So I'm just going to do a handful of actual timed attempts. I'm going to include my recognition time in that because I think that's important. Obviously, I know the left wing is going to be solved and I know the position of the midge as well, so I'm only looking for one piece, but I do think that's still reflective of a solve, you know, when you're looking ahead. So I'm going to do a few attempts of that, and then once I've done that, I will show you, you know, the data that I've got and what that looks like with actual results in. Okay, so as you can see here, I did 60 attempts at these cases. There were 10 of them. So you'd expect them to come up about 6 times each. As you can see, that's not quite the case. There was one that came up 10 times and one that I only got once, actually. But that's, you can fiddle about with that in the settings. You can change, you know, how often the solves come up. Like you've got weighted choice number of solves and weighted choice on mean time. So that's something you can play around with. But yeah, so if I click on, let's take the one I did 10 of. So that was, which case was that? That was this case, where we've just got a block from this subset. So predictably that is, as you can see from this list here, that is my fastest of these cases because it's only 5 moves. And so as you can see from this graph, I had 4 attempts that were above 1.15, where I obviously just locked up a little bit. And then all the rest were below 0.95, so between 0.85 and 0.95. And as you can see here, the average, there's not too much variance. Obviously, the couple of cases where I did lock up, but generally my average is pretty decent. And as you can see, the more I did it, the very slightly lower the average got. So that's really interesting. If we take a look at another one, let's do this one. So yeah, here we have, this is a 3R by U2, 3R by prime setup, one that I use anyway. And if we look at the data here, it's a bit more spread out, as you can see, you know, some good executions, some bad ones. But again, the trend is going down, so that's a good sign. Okay, so that's the trainer itself, but now I want to get into some more stuff about how you can use this as a tool for deliberate practice, and not just for learning cross-edge solutions. I believe that one of the best ways that you can use any trainer for any alg set is for look-ahead purposes and predicting the position of the next pieces that you're going to solve. So if you follow my recent look-ahead video, you should be getting more familiar with how the basic cases affect other pieces on the cube. The best way I think to approach this is to work on your look-ahead for one case at a time, starting with the most basic or common cases first, and get as familiar as you can with each case at a time. So if you select a group of cases you know or are reasonably confident with the solutions for, Then start practicing, but do the scramble, then a D move, then set up the case you want to practice your look ahead for. You have that case on top of another and can then try to solve both those cases in one look. For example, if you wanted to practice your look ahead for the 3R wide U2 3R wide prime trigger, and you know decent solutions for all of the midge solved cases, you can select all of the midge solved cases on the trainer. So I'll do that now. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 subsets. So that's quite a lot of algs, but if you're confident on them, it should be fine. So then if we go to train, I've got an empty session up here. I'm going to apply the scramble. And now I'm going to do a D move, and then I'm going to set up to 3R wide U2 3R wide prime with a different cross edge with the red one. And in this case, that is just doing the same moves. Then when you start the timer, you know you'll be doing 3R wide U2 3R wide prime to solve your second to last cross edge, and we'll have to do a D prime to align your last one. So you can try and work out how that trigger will affect the other unsolved pieces on your last cross edge. So here, for example, we can see we have a midge solved, we have one of the pieces in the back here, and we have the other in the front here. And actually, I know from practicing this look ahead myself that neither of these unsolved wings is going to move at all when we do this. So I can go ahead and do that solution, and then I can go straight into my solution for these last two pieces, which looks like this. Choosing a decent sized subset or group of cases is good because you'll likely have to look in slightly different places each time for your last cross-edge pieces, because you won't know for sure which case you're going to get. But the more you do it, the more accustomed you'll become to knowing how the pieces get moved around by the first case, for example 3R wide U2 3R wide prime, and you'll get better at looking ahead into your last cross-edge. So I'm going to do a few more demonstrations with the 3R wide U2 3R wide prime trigger to show you what I'm on about. So here, I'm just going to follow the scramble again. And then without looking, just going to immediately set up to this case. So now I can start the timer. You can see obviously what we've got here, 3R wide U2 3R wide prime, and we've got another midge solved case, and then we have this piece here and this piece in the back, which is slightly different to the case we just had before. And so if I were to see this, then I could do the solution and then immediately go in to my solution for the next case without having to look. And again, it might be easy to look at this time and think, oh, well, that's a really slow time for, for just doing two cross-edge solutions. But the important thing is not the time right now. The important thing is that you are accurate with your predictions, because that's what we're learning to do. We're just learning to, predict the position of pieces from doing a different solution. And to be honest, you don't even have to time each of these solutions. What you could just do is, again, do the scramble, and then set up the next case. So this time we've got these two pieces here. I know this one's not going to move, and I know this one is going to come down to here, and the white of it is going to be on this side. So I can do that, and I can immediately go into my solution. I know it's done, and then I can just start the timer and stop the timer really quickly again and move on to the next solution. So here, we've got this time a flipped wing down here and the other one's back here. And again, neither of them are going to move relative to where they currently are. So I can immediately go ahead and do the solution, do another one. So this time we've got a flipped edge piece here, and this time we've got one in the front. And this is one of the more difficult ones to see because this is going to end up here and it's going to be flipped. So the white is going to be on the front. And so I know I can go straight into this. I don't have to do any setup moves. So I think this is a really, really powerful tool for helping you improve your look ahead, like I talked about in my look ahead video. And one of the things that makes this really powerful is that you have completely free choice over what cases you choose to set up to and what cases you choose to practice your look ahead on. I think this is a really good approach, especially if you're starting with more basic cases that don't affect as many pieces, a bit like 3R wide U2 3R wide prime. And again, as I've said in my look ahead video, you can work on tracking pieces. So for example, for cases where you have like 2-gen setups to 3R wide U2 3R wide prime, they're relatively easy to track other pieces. They don't affect that many pieces at a time. You don't need to learn individual look-ahead patterns for every single case. You can just have a look around the cube, see where the pieces currently are, track them as you do your setup moves, and then once you've finished your setup moves, you're then going to know the look-ahead pattern for the basic case, and you'll be able to tell what your last cross-edge case will be. So finally, I want to talk about something that I've mentioned in a couple of my other recent videos, firstly in my look-ahead video and also in my 6x6 and 7x7 video. And this is going to be a way of tying those things together, and I think it can be a really helpful practice technique for 6x6 and 7x7 as well. So that just shows you how this tool can be used not just for 5x5 but also for other puzzles. So at this point, if you haven't seen my video on 6x6 and 7x7 and reducing cross-edged cases on those puzzles into a 5x5 last cross-edge case, then I would recommend you pause this video and go ahead and watch that one now, so that you have a decent understanding of what I'm going to be talking about. But in short, the idea is to create what I would call a midge block on 6x6 or 7x7. So, for example, on 6x6, we have these two inner wings, and if we pair them together like this, then as you can see, they sort of are going to act now as like a bigger midge piece, because they have rotational symmetry, they're in the center of the edge and all of that kind of stuff. So then we can solve our remaining two wing pieces, our outer wing pieces, just like wings on a 5x5, and in the same way as a last cross-edge case. And the same thing works on 7x7, except this time we've got a midge as well. So we want to pair the midge and the two inner wings like this. We want to build a block like that, and now that also is going to act as a midge. So we can solve it, like we would, again, a 5x5 last cross-edge case. So there are two techniques for building a midge block like this on 6x6 or 7x7. Either directly into DF, like I showed you on 6x6, which is basically just solving the pieces as you would normally, just inserting them as you would in Hoya, or in the U layer, like I showed you on 7x7, which can sometimes be more efficient, but there are a lot more cases in there that are different from in this trainer, so that's something that's better to do intuitively. And I think in terms of actually using this trainer for this technique, it's easier to just solve the midge block directly into DF, and that will also force a midge solved 5x5 case. And this will be an advantage because it means you would only need to be confident on those midge solved cases, which only make up about 30 to 40% of the total number of cases. So I'm just, at this point, I'm going to go back to our selection because, as you can see, I've got all of our regular midge solved cases, but also some of our two-piece solved cases have the midge solved as well. But it's definitely important to include those cases as well because they do have the midge solved, so they therefore could come up. So something you could do, for example, on 6x6, if you just wanted to learn the look-ahead pattern for a case like this, where if we ignore the outer wings for a minute, we've just got this inner wing, which is already solved in DF, and then this one, which is misoriented in the U layer. It's just a simple 4-move insertion, I'm sure you all know. But what we can do is we can set up to a midge solved case with the outer wings on 5x5 first. So here we've got one. And then immediately just set up to that previous case using these two pieces like this. And an important thing here is we don't need to do a D move before we set up to that case because we're working on the same cross edge. So it's a bit different to how you would use it on 5x5. So as you can see, we've got these two pieces here ready to solve, and then our final two pieces are back here. We've got this case, and this is a relatively easy one because neither of these two pieces are going to move when we insert this. So we can do a normal insert and then go straight into our last cross edge case like that. Okay, so I'll do another one. Follow the scramble. And then immediately, without looking at what case I had, I'm going to set up to this case. And so here, what we can notice is that we have this flipped outer wing, and we might know from practicing setting up this case on a solved cube that when we insert this piece with just wide moves, this piece is going to come down with it. So this outer wing is going to end up flipped relative to our midge block. Then looking around, we have our final piece back here, and so we know that in a back slot that's not going to be affected by this insertion. So we can insert our piece and then go straight in to what we know is going to be our last cross edge case without any hesitation. So here's a different case, and I've set up a different case for the inner wings here. So we've still got this piece solved, but this time our other inner wing is back here in the back right. And so we know this is going to be a 5 mover, and our other two pieces are here and here. And what you will know from setting up to this case on a solved cube is that when we do our 5 move solution for this piece here in the back, this is not going to move, or at least it'll end up back where it was. This one is though, and this one is going to come round to the left. So then we will have this piece, which is oriented in this position, so the white is going to be here, and then this piece is going to stay where it is. So we can do our solution like that, and then immediately go into our last cross edge case without any pauses. Then for 7x7, you could choose any possible 5x5 last cross edge case for the inner wings and midge. Again, assuming that you're solving the inner block into DF and setting up to a random midge solved case. So again, we'll take a slightly basic case, but somewhat more complicated and definitely still useful to know. So if we imagine, again, just looking at our inner pieces for now, we will have one wing that's solved, the midge flipped relative to it, and the other wing in the U layer like this. And we can solve them just like this. So if we follow the scramble that we've got here for our random midge solved case, and then immediately without looking, set up to this inner pieces case on the cube. So what we can look at here is we have obviously the case that we know we're going to have, and looking for our other two pieces, we have one here in the U layer and one here in the front right slot. Now, let's say you're less confident on this case and you're trying to learn it, and you might know the position of one of the pieces, but not the other one. And this is still really helpful to practice because you can take the time while you're doing this solution to track the one piece that you don't know the location of, and know that you'll be able to quickly identify the case because you will know the position of one of the other pieces. So let's say for this case, I know that this piece here is going to go firstly up to this slot here, and the white will be facing the side, so it'll be misoriented, and then it's going to end up in the back where this piece is currently. So I know what's going to happen to this piece. I know it's going to come up to here, but I don't know exactly what's going to happen to this piece. So while I'm executing this solution for these three pieces, I'm going to be tracking this piece. So it gets hidden at first, so it doesn't move for this bit, but here, now it's going to come to the front and it's going to get misoriented, and I can see it's going to go to here and then to here. So as I'm doing that, I can identify exactly what case I've got here, and I can go straight into it with very limited pausing. Then again, I'll show you another example. I'll set up to a different case again this time. Let's just do nice and simple. In this case, it's 4R wide U2, 4R wide prime. And so here, we've already set up for this case. We've got our inner piece, our inner wing here, the midge, and then the other inner wing at the back. And our remaining two outer wings are here and here. And what I know from this case is that all of the pieces up in this sort of top left are going to come down to this front right slot, and these front right pieces are going to swap and they're going to go up to the top left. So I can see this piece is going to come to here and the white will be facing the front, and I can see this piece is going to come to here and the white will be facing the side. So these two pieces are actually just going to swap position, really. So I can do this, and then I can immediately go into my last cross edge case, knowing what it will be. I'm not really going to go into any more examples just because the process will be just the same for the rest of them, and you can choose exactly what cases you randomly set up to. For example, all of the midge solved cases, or just one subset at a time, depending on what you're learning. And again, you can also choose which case you do on top each time to learn the lookahead patterns for. So I hope all that made sense. As you can see, there are a lot of different ways that you can use this trainer, especially for lookahead purposes, which I think is something that's definitely a bit underdeveloped right now. And just using solves, timed or untimed, to try and practice your lookahead is all well and good, but doing something like this to help target your practice, especially on 6x6 and 7x7, where if you reduce down to a 5x5 last cross edge case by making a midge block, a lot of the time you can force your midge block to be solved, and so you greatly reduce the number of cases that you set up to. And that means your lookahead is only going to be slightly easier because you're only looking for two specific pieces, and hopefully they shouldn't be too hard to track once you know the basic cases and can expand on them. So yeah, that's the trainer. I think it's an absolutely fantastic resource, and I think there's a lot of potential for using it to improve various aspects of your solve. So yeah, have a play around with it, and hopefully you'll see a lot of improvement. So there we go. That was quite a lot of information, I'm sure, and I am aware that I've talked about quite a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily like just about the trainer. It's more about like how you can use it to practice. But I hope that I've showed, you know, how useful a tool like this can be. And I hope that, you know, with the amount of work that's gone into this, I really hope it can be useful to a lot of different people, and not just on 5x5 as well, like I said, on 6x6 and 7x7 as well. Because I think that, you know, as I said in my 6x6 and 7x7 video that I uploaded recently, using this sort of the method that I've just described as a general approach can be quite efficient in terms of, you know, your actual solution length, and also in terms of, you know, not having to learn any more massive alg sets for different puzzles, and using techniques that you already know to implement into your solves a bit more. And also, as I've said multiple times, Lookahead is one of the most important things, and also one of the hardest things that you can do in cross edges. So again, having a tool that can not just help you learn cases, but can also help you improve your Lookahead just by using it in a slightly different way, I think that's going to be super, super valuable, and I really hope this helps a lot of people. So yeah, that's all for this one. Once again, a huge, huge thank you to Malta for being so kind in helping out, and for making such an incredible trainer that I hope will be really useful. Yeah, go wild. I hope to see a lot of you know, improvement in a lot of other people's Hoya solves. And yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot for watching.